The most burning question here in West Texas, where is the girl? Of course, this massive law enforcement operation began when a young girl, a 16-year-old girl, mother of an 8-month-old child, placed a phone call from inside that FLDS compound claiming that she had been forced into a polygamous marriage with a 50-year-old man, and that man had fathered an 8-month-old child with that girl. The girl also said that man had physically abused her. That was the impetus, allowing Texas law officers to enter the compound with a search warrant.
401 children, 133 women literally hauled off in buses, saving them from this 1,700-acre compound, a sect where the women were forced as young girls to marry much older men and give birth. I want to go out to Scott Haynes, Sheriff's Officer at Santa Rosa County, Florida. Officer, it's amazing to me this whole thing didn't blow up like Waco, but my question now is, how do you question some of these adult women that are indoctrinated to believe outsiders are the devil?
Nancy, one of the big problems they're going to have is getting their trust. These people are not, they're not willing to necessarily do that. They're fearing retaliation. They've seen it in the past. They've seen other people from that sect be retaliated against. So that trust is going to need to be built up so they feel comfortable and know that they're going to be safe and protected.
And another thing, how do you pull off a raid this big? It's the biggest one in U.S. history.
It's huge. The manpower out there has to be incredible. They have a lot of agencies working together. And from what I understand, they had almost pre-planned this out in case they ever did have to go in there, because they couldn't go in there until they received a tip of allegations of abuse.
Which answers a lot of questions. That answers a lot of questions, Scott Haynes. The people are wondering why it wasn't done sooner. I wonder that too, but I'm thankful it didn't go up in flames like Waco did. Joining me also tonight, Penny Peterson, women and children's activist. She's a former FLDS member. Penny, thank you for being with us. What do they teach you as a young girl?
Well, you were taught to obey the man, obey the father, obey the priesthood, and you know, above all, obey your husband. So the men rule the community, and no questions asked. That is
What do the girls believe will happen to them if they don't?
That they will go straight to hell and lose their salvation and won't be welcome into the kingdom of God.
To Laurie Allen, producer of Banking on Heaven, a former FLDS member, do you believe any of the women are going to cooperate? What do they think about outsiders?
Well, you know what I heard today from my sources is that 60 of the women volunteered. They were given an option to stay or leave, and they chose to leave. Now, I don't know if they left because they want to be with their children, or if they left because they want to get out. I don't really know for sure yet, but I need to clarify that I'm not from the FLDS. I was raised in the violent LeBaron polygamous sect. My uncle was the Mormon Manson. He killed over 30 people. So, but I was raised in another polygamous sect. I went to school in Colorado City when I was a child, and my grandparents met in Colorado City, and I have a lot of relatives in that town. But I was not raised specifically in the FLDS.
I want to go to Dr. Michael Arnall. He's a board-certified forensic pathologist. Doctor, here's my question. Some of the young girls, many of them actually, are forced to marry and procreate with relatives. What type of dangers does that pose?
Well, all of us have a few bad genes. A few bad genes from mom and a few bad genes from dad. As long as there's no match, we get along just fine. But if mom and dad are genetically close, then the chance of a match at one of those bad genes is increased. And of course, that's bad.
Dr. Arnall, very quickly, CPS says they're having trouble actually identifying the kids, the interchangeable names, they're all interrelated. Will DNA be able to help?
DNA is the way they're going to do this. Plus, they can look at the ages of the kids. They may look at the paper trail tax records and welfare records to see who they should be looking for in what age groups.
You know, Jim Kirkwood, he brings up an interesting issue when he said welfare. Jim joining us from KTKK. There's a huge government payroll. All these women are on, a lot of them are on government assistance.
Yes, they are. In fact, a local polygamous leader was sued about 20 years ago for $300,000 and some for what they could prove.
Out to the lawyers, Susan Moss, Peter Schaefer, Nancy Yamini. Weigh in, Susan.
If young girls are made to have sex with old men, their next ranch will be the state pen. I mean, under the cloak of religious freedom, we don't allow human sacrifice and we do not allow statutory rape. There is no excuse, and luckily there is no defense.
Peter Schaefer, what's the defense?
You know, I don't even know that a crime was committed here. 3 days they're searching this compound. They haven't found the so-called reporter of this incident, Nancy. The whole thing was pre-planned. The state of Texas had changed the law to the age of consent and raised it 2 years ago in response to this group of people. So this smells like a pretext. They were waiting, they had this thing planned out, and now what you call saving 400 people, I call kidnapping, because they don't find this religion palatable.
Thanks. Paul Anthony, what about it?
Well, you know, state officials are kind of keeping a pretty close wraps on things to try to protect the girls, but they say that it's a complaint-driven assault is what they're saying on this ranch.
So Nancy Yamini, do you agree with Peter Schaefer that it's a big conspiracy by the Texas authorities? They waited years to do it, and you're buying into that?
I don't know if I buy into that, but I mean, he certainly does have a defense of freedom of religion here.
Freedom of religion, does that include statutory rape, Nancy Yamini?
No, it does not, but freedom of religion, I mean, if his religion believes in bigamy, then he could certainly, it's not a winnable defense, Nancy. However, it certainly is a defense to bigamy.
Well, you're right about that. It's not winnable.